Hello friends, this is your humble narrator and host, Tony Figueroa, coming to you with another video. And as you can see, we have a studio audience. Going from the left is Invader number 3, who's also wrestled as Invader number 2 and 1, a Puerto Rican masked wrestler. Going over here, we have Giant Machine with the late, great Andre the Giant under that hood. We have Mil Máscaras, or 1,000 Masks, Mexico's ambassador to the United States and Japan for Lucha Libre. Also made many movies, starred in some comics as well, and is still around today. Then we have Big Van Vader, the late Big Van Vader, in his full hooded masked look. This is from his New Japan Pro Wrestling glory days, where he really tore it up as a monster foreign heel. And towering over everyone is El Santo, Mexico's greatest luchador, as well as the star of many movies and a very long-running comic book series as well. I am the producer and author, self-publisher of Wrestler Zero, a masked wrestler who fights weird menaces. And that's my first issue, and this is my second issue. And I am currently working on new material with Wrestler Zero, and I thought I'd share some of that with you today before getting on to the meat of the video. And these are the pencils on 11 by 17 copy paper. It's just Wrestler Zero in a pretty tight spot. I could use this as a story page or as a pinup, and in this case, I think I'm just going to go in both directions, to be honest with you. And after inking and light boxing, this is what ensued, and this can be colored or left in black and white, but I do have a very strong preference for black and white. But I do enjoy color as much as the next person too, so go figure. All right, the subject of today's video is another artist, writer, who is doing a masked wrestler comic, and in my opinion, it's by far the best masked wrestler comic that's ever been published. I call him the undisputed, undefeated heavyweight champ of the masked wrestler comic. And I'm speaking of no other than Rafael Navarro, artist and writer. And before we get into looking at his work, I want to explore a little bit a common thread that runs between the two of us. And so let's check that out. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. Before I get into that, I do want to give a shout out to Kurt Brugel and Jake Jacobs for interviewing me on their Turbo Pit Fighter channel. The video is available, and there'll be a description and a link if you want to see it, hear me, and see my face. I had a great time. I can't thank them enough for it. They're also producing a fantastic comic called Turbo Pit Fighter. I urge you to go to their channel. They're also on Instagram and Facebook. Make contact with them. Get on a mailing list so you can know when they're going to publish their comic. There's currently a preview available that you can look at. And I did make a video about it as well called Fighters. So if you want to check that out after you watch this video, please go right ahead. But I'll be putting links to everything in the description of this video. So before we get into exploring Rafael Navarro's fantastic work, I want to kind of set a stage for it, if you will. And I'll talk about my own experiences and the common thread that runs between Rafael and myself, even though we've never met in person. I do want to say he's a terrific guy. I've been interacting with him via social media for a number of years. We've traded some comics. He's a great, great guy in addition to being a great artist. So what's there not to like? And he's the kind of guy you definitely want to root for. Okay, I became aware of his work, incidentally. I was working with a gentleman, Keith Rainville, the publisher of From Parts Unknown, a masked wrestler themed magazine that covered the masked wrestler in all its dimensions, movies, comics, multimedia, and a little bit of talk about wrestling. But it was in that magazine that I first became aware of Sonambulo, which is the title character of Rafael Navarro's work. In English, it means sleepwalker. And I was hooked. I got that first miniseries, and I'm going to go over it here with you shortly. But as I said earlier, I do want to set the stage, the cultural context in which these works appear. So let's start off first with this magazine. This is Lucha Libre magazine. Now, I lived in Puerto Rico as a child for 4 years, and I was aware of professional wrestling in a very vague sense before I moved to Puerto Rico. But once I started living there and I had to learn Spanish by reading Spanish language translations of Marvel and DC comics produced by Editorial Novato, or EN, or N as we used to call it, I was able to learn Spanish that way. And then I started seeing this magazine everywhere. Was an import from Mexico, obviously. And as you can see, it features really beautiful cover portraits of masked luchadores. Here we have the famous Ola Blanca, or White Wave, which is Dr. Wagner and the White Angel, Dr. Wagner and Angel Blanco. Unfortunately, both men are no longer with us, but in their heyday, they were tearing it up. And this is Mil Máscaras' brother, Psicodélico, or Psychedelic. And that's just such an iconic image, in my opinion. And of course, we have the other third of Lucha Libre's Holy Trinity, Blue Demon, a fantastic wrestler in the ring, the star of his own movies, as well as some team-ups with Santo and other wrestlers. And he was also the star of his own comic book series. So that's him, no longer with us, unfortunately. This is Mano Negra, or Black Hand, and it's, out of all the masks I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen plenty, without a doubt, this one is probably my favorite. It's just absolutely beautiful. He lost that mask in a mask versus mask match back in the 80s. He's still active today as a referee. He does some wrestling on special occasions. He's kept himself in really good shape. And his legacy is being continued by his daughter and also a son or a relative who's carrying on as his junior. And then we have Fishman, another legend of Lucha Libre. Tremendous athlete, great looking mask, and in his heyday of the 60s and 70s, even maybe into the early 80s, he was just really tearing it up in the ring. And the other component to this is a long-running comic book that was also an import from Mexico, and that I think at its heyday was being published 3 times a week. And this is El Santos comic, published by Jose G. Cruz. And it's practically impossible to get a whole collection of this. I'm sure someone in the world, a few people probably have it, but you get what you can get your hands on, I guess. You take what you can get. But really nice covers, Some of them were probably publicity stills from movies, but some of them were designed specifically for the comic itself. And let's just go ahead and look in this comic because it features an extremely unique approach to comic book making. And this is a process called photomontaje, or photomontage. And in essence, Santo would be photographed in various poses, maybe with some dramatic lighting added. And then what would happen is that subsequently the backgrounds would be either drawn or photographs, and then it would be lettered. And as you can see, it was printed in a very beautiful sepia tone. It just gives it such a unique look, almost like a document from another world. And what this enabled the producers of this comic book to do is to set Santo in environments and against opponents that they just didn't have the budget or the technology for when he was at his film making heyday. Great stuff. I highly recommend it. They're not like American comics. This is actually a very interesting product. I love this. I adore it. I'm in love with everything about it. And that's, I think, the thread that unites Rafael's work and mine is a love for this material. Rafael is Mexican. He's lives in California, and so this is definitely, you could say, it's his culture, but it's a very worldwide culture. Also, it's become very global. But back in the 70s, it was still mainly a Mexican product, but it had a big influence in the Caribbean, which is where I was living at the time that I first encountered the material that I showed you. So let's dive into his work a little bit, because everything is a treasure in here. This is an anniversary reprint, the 25th anniversary of the first 3-issue miniseries. Rafael is a Xeric Grant winner, which I find to be very prestigious. And so this is a beautifully designed, and he customized it for me because he's that great of a guy. Beautifully designed by Keith Rainville to commemorate this anniversary. And let's get into some of the pages. There's some pretty cool intros here. This is just a beautiful product, and Keith is definitely a fantastic designer. Look at that splash. If that doesn't yell noir, the monochromatic palette at its most beautiful, I don't know what to tell you. This is a gorgeous drop-dead piece of work here. Looks like something out of a European comic, an old black and white noir film. Just beautiful stuff, really. And for this edition, I think gray tones were added because this did not appear in the initial comic, but it really enhances what's going on here. The storytelling is just completely on point. The drawing is just fantastic. Everything is, well, what can you say? Absolutely top-notch. You know, just great stuff. And then finally, we get to see a nice big shot of our hero. And Sonambulo is a retired luchador who has the uncanny ability to see into people's dreams. And as a detective, it's brilliant. And it's a brilliant idea to make him into a private eye because, you know, he's constantly trying to uncover truths that people keep hidden. And with his ability to see into dreams, he can also see the secrets that people keep from themselves as well. So just an absolutely fantastic idea. So after he did this, this is the next version, Sonambulo's Strange Tales, and with these beautifully painted covers by Rafael. And again, we have this just gorgeous black and white, outstanding storytelling, panel compositions, and his writing is really quite good. I mean, he's a consummate storyteller through and through. Just look at that. Absolutely beautiful work. And this short story here is without giving the whole thing away, is definitely inspired by the tale of the Weeping Woman, or La Llorona. And long story short, she's condemned to wander the earth for eternity, looking for the children that she herself drowned to spite a lover that spurned her. So, I mean, it's a clinic in brushwork. It's a clinic in black and white. It's a clinic in storytelling. What more can you say? Light years, millions of light years ahead of where I am. And this is a story that combines blocks of text with some really cool illustrations. Just take a look at that. I mean, I think that's done on coquille board, if I'm not mistaken. But however it was done, you can't argue with it. Just absolutely gorgeous stuff. So I highly recommend it. The next one is Ghost of a Chance, and I think this is a very moving, very affecting story of lost love, promises made that were not able to be kept, and it has such a poignancy to it. You really don't encounter this type of poignant storytelling, especially in a fantastic sort of genre like this. And the next one is Masks of Sonambulo, collection of stories by different creators. And this is very generous of Raphael to open up his world, if you will. And this is some of Raphael's work. He gets the first story. And then Sonambulo lives, kind of like Dante's Inferno to a certain degree, but with a masked wrestler. What's there not to like? And talk about drawing beautiful girls. I mean, that brings to mind so many people. Wally Wood, who's famous among other things for his depiction of beautiful women, and just the storytelling just absolutely flows. I mean, you simply can't argue with this. And there's a fantastic splash page in it. I mean, just look at that. I mean, it's Kirby, it's Frank Robbins, it's Toth, it's Lucha Libre, all rolled into a phenomenal package. And I just don't really think anyone's doing it better than he is. There have been a lot of really good masked wrestler comics out there produced by different people. But as I said at the outset, Raphael is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the luchador comic. And he's a great guy, too. And that brings us to a 3-part series called Mexican Standoff, about the search for a treasure, an eternal feud between two brothers, and literally life and death stakes. I'm not sure if I really showed these comics, one-shots, and miniseries in chronological order. But the beauty of his writing is that no matter what issue you pick up, you're never confused. Everything is very clear and very easy to follow. And even if this was in a foreign language and you didn't speak that language or read it, you could still completely understand everything that's going on because he's a consummate storyteller. So what more can you ask, right? So that's a look into Rafael Navarro's work. And here are my meager efforts again as I close this video. Certainly, Rafael's work is something to aspire to. The level of craft and excellence is something to use as an influence, to study it, to look at it, and to try to be, if I can be half as good as he is, I think I can sleep really well at night. Okay, well, I'm going to put links to everything in the description of the video, as I said before. And I want to thank everyone who has watched these videos, who's reached out to me and commented, has hit me up on my different social media. And I thank all of you, and I look forward to the next video. I'm going to continue producing new work because I definitely have to get out another issue of Wrestler Zero with some related material. So until the next video, this is your humble narrator, Tony Figueroa, saying bye for now. You guys take the best care. See ya.